the Supreme Court continued trying to turn back the clock to the 1860s, and here in New York, Zohran Mamdani won the Democratic primary for mayor, defeating, among others, Andrew Cuomo and Brad Lander, who gave the most upbeat concession speech imaginable.
Andrew Cuomo is in the past. He is not the present or future of New York City. Good fucking riddance.
Yes, I love everything about that, including the way he says New York City. He should be the announcer on one of the Statue of Liberty ferries. Ladies and gentlemen, look to your left as we make this turn. New York City! Andrew Cuomo, eat shit! And while there'll clearly be more to say about the mayoral race going forward, for now, we're going to dive straight in with our main story tonight, which concerns a piece of legislation dear to President Trump's heart.
The One Big Beautiful Bill is among the most important pieces of legislation in our country's history. I don't think there's ever been anything bigger. And I said, let's make it one big, beautiful bill. We're voting essentially on the big, beautiful, that gorgeous, big, beautiful bill.
Stop it! Stop it right now! The One Big Beautiful Bill sounds either like a lumberjack with an OnlyFans page or a Pornhub tab for people who come to toucans. But it is truly massive, and it's currently moving through Congress after passing the House by the narrowest of margins.
With cheers of USA, House Republicans passed their sweeping version of the president's agenda. Republicans in the House held 2 overnight sessions. In the end, Speaker Johnson eked out his biggest victory yet, winning by a single vote, though the dark of night cost him. One member who would have voted yes overslept and missed it.
It's true, it passed by a single vote, even though one representative, Andrew Garbarino, slept through it, which is a little surprising given his official portrait seems less sleepy and more high on expired cough medicine. The bill's currently in the Senate, and Trump is pushing them to pass their version as soon as possible, posting, "To my friends in the Senate, lock yourself in a room if you must. Don't go home. Pass it immediately. No one goes on vacation until it's done." This whole process has been rushed to the point that some House members who voted for the bill later had to admit that they hadn't read all of it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, arguably one of the worst things to come out of Georgia since the Trail of Tears, was upset when she learned the House version included a provision prohibiting states from restricting AI for the next 10 years.
This past week, I have come out in full transparency and said, when I voted for the One Big Beautiful Bill, I didn't know about this clause.
Yeah, that's not great, although to be fair, who among us hasn't approved things that we haven't read properly? It's why none of you noticed Apple's new terms and conditions technically give them rights to your firstborn child. It is true, Tim Cook is pulling a Rumpelstiltskin right now, and he's coming for them as soon as they can hold a tiny little screwdriver. But a lot of people don't know what's in this bill. About 2/3 of the public say they've heard little or nothing about it, but when they do, they don't like it. As polls show, those who've heard a great deal or good amount about it oppose it by a roughly 2-to-1 margin. Even some Senate Republicans will admit that not all their colleagues are thrilled about the bill's contents.
We could spend 4 weeks, we could spend 4 years. And when we're done, not every Republican senator is going to want a French kiss this final product. It's just not going to happen.
That is such a weird way to phrase that. Why would you force us all to imagine lawmakers tonguing a stack of paper? But as regular viewers know, Kennedy loves gratuitous sex talk, from inserting the phrase, "I like omelettes better than sex," into a discussion about, and this is true, USAID cuts, to this memorable moment.
I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth.
It's always good. And it is important to remember that in the records of Congress, there is an answer to the question, what if Foghorn Leghorn was a power bottom? And look, as of taping, the bill still needs to clear the Senate and then go back to the House, and things are still coming in and out of it. But the broad contours are clear. It is a massive redistribution of wealth upward, accompanied by gigantic cuts to critical programs for the most vulnerable. So given that, tonight, let's talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill, what it contains and what it will actually do. And let's start with the fact, when Trump talks about this bill, the main thing he emphasises is that it will extend the tax cuts Republicans passed in 2017 and add some more, which he claims will be good for everyone. The White House recently said it'll deliver a blue-collar boom, all caps, which sounds like a new special at IHOP tied to the Smurfs movie that'll make you immediately shit yourself. But that is more than a little misleading, because while the bill does contain tax cuts for basically everyone, their benefits are massively concentrated among the wealthiest Americans. In fact, 60% of the tax cuts would go to the top 20% of households. And you should know, just about every independent analysis agrees this bill would add trillions to the national debt. And to the extent the bill's tax cuts are going to be paid for at all, it'll be through slashing programs that benefit the poor. And I want to talk about 2 key areas they're targeting: healthcare and food assistance. When it comes to healthcare, there are lots of cuts, both big and small. For instance, the bill fails to extend tax credits for healthcare premiums under the ACA, while adding burdensome paperwork to make it hard for people to remain on the plans they already have. And I know that might not sound like much to you, but it's estimated those tweaks alone will lead to 4.2 million people becoming uninsured, which makes them pretty consequential tweaks. It'd be like changing RuPaul's Drag Race to Rand Paul's Drag Race. You can call it just a tweak, but it's about to make everything way worse. But the big target here is Medicaid, the public insurance program providing health coverage to, among others, people with low incomes and disabilities. Though this bill's defenders will insist Medicaid is safe.
I'm going to say this very clearly.
Yeah.
Our legislation preserves Medicaid, strengthens Medicaid for the people who actually need it and deserve it.
Look, we're going to do everything we can to strengthen Medicaid, to preserve it for those who need it the most.
Medicare, Medicaid, none of that stuff is going to be touched.
Nothing.
You don't have to.
OK, but there's a few problems there, starting with the fact following through on a promise not to touch something has never exactly been one of Trump's strong suits. Also, the math just doesn't support those claims. As one analysis puts it, major Medicaid cuts are the only way to meet House budget resolution requirements. And the big way this bill tries to do that is by adding work requirements for many low-income recipients who got coverage under Medicaid expansion, effectively removing a lot of them from the rolls. Basically, under the bill, to get Medicaid, they'd have to prove they worked, volunteered, or went to school for 80 hours a month. That alone is projected to cause over 5 million Americans to lose coverage by the end of the decade. Though to hear Mike Johnson tell it, that's just not a problem, because they're just targeting one specific group.
You don't want able-bodied workers on a program that is intended, for example, for single mothers with 2 small children who's just trying to make it. That's what Medicaid is for, not for 29-year-old males sitting on their couches playing video games. We're going to find those guys and we're going to send them back to work.
OK, 29-year-old males sitting on the couch playing video games? How is it possible that Mike Johnson always sounds so old and out of touch while also managing to look like a 12-year-old who dressed up as Stephen Colbert for Halloween? The problem with that argument is that most Medicaid enrollees are working. The most recent data shows that nearly 2 in 3 work. And most of the rest have a disability, are caring for family members, or are attending school. And yet, Republicans won't stop painting lurid scenarios of Medicaid freeloaders. For instance, here's the current head of Medicare and Medicaid Services, who, remember, is inexplicably Dr. Oz, unloading the single weirdest hypothetical you will ever hear in your life.
Here's the metaphor. You get home at night with Lou, and there's someone sitting on your couch in the basement. You don't know them. But they have health insurance that you're paying for. And you say, listen, to keep his health insurance, I want you to apply for a job. You don't have to work. Just apply for a job, go get an education, volunteer somewhere, be involved in the community, or take care of one of the kids in the family, help out a little bit. If they say no, you say, well, I'm taking your insurance away. That's not an unreasonable deal to make.
OK, let's just pause together for a moment and unpack what he just described. In that scenario, you get home at night to find a complete stranger sitting on your couch in your basement. Naturally, the first thing they say is, hi, I have health insurance that you're paying for. But instead of screaming and immediately calling 911, you calmly say, OK, person I've never seen before, I'll let you keep the health insurance I just found out I'm paying for without asking who you are or how you got into my house. My one and only requirement is that you apply for a job. You can use my Wi-Fi, as apparently you live in my basement now, and that's a reality I've quickly accepted. Or you can go get an education or volunteer or take care of one of my kids. Naturally, I trust you, a complete stranger, unexpectedly in my home with the lives of my children. And then this individual says, no, that doesn't seem reasonable to me. So you say, OK, well, you leave me with no other option. I'm going to have to take your insurance away. Obviously, you can still live in my house. That goes without saying, your family now. But you'll have to find a way to pay for your own health insurance. That's not an unreasonable deal to make. But honestly, the weirdness of that scenario is actually preferable to what it sounds like when Dr. Oz gives you a glimpse into what he really thinks work requirements are for.
I have confidence in the American people. You give people a chance to work, and we know we have twice as many jobs as there are people looking for them. Go out there, do entry-level jobs, get into the workforce, prove that you matter, get agency into your own life. It's a much more enjoyable experience if you're going through life thinking that you control your destiny, and you'll get better insurance at the same time.
Hold on. Prove that you matter? So a person only means something if they work. That is not true at all. In fact, if ever there were proof that you can work for decades while adding exactly 0 value to society, it is Dr. Oz himself, who, as we've mentioned before, once did an episode of his show where he asked Cameron Diaz this.
Does this ever happen to you?
Luckily, no, I'm not a girl that gets constipated.
That is the perfect facial response to that. That was on daytime television. That played in restaurants and waiting rooms. And as if work requirements weren't bad enough, Many are worried that federal cuts to Medicaid will mean that states are likely to cut things like home and community-based supports, which will have huge consequences for those who rely on those services to literally keep them alive, as they have been trying to make people understand. Yeah, that woman clearly deserves to have healthcare that keeps her alive, even in the insane theoretical situation that she somehow moved into someone's basement with no warning, which, to be clear, has never happened to anyone and never will. That would still be the case. And as if that weren't bad enough, and it really is, it is worth noting people not on Medicaid will be affected too, as it's a major source of funding for hospitals across the country. So with these cuts, rural hospitals are likely to be forced to reduce the services they offer, cut staff, or close altogether. And when you take all of the bill's provisions concerning healthcare together, the CBO estimates they'll result in 16 million more uninsured people in the year 2034 than would otherwise be the case. And it is not like people haven't tried to warn Republicans of the consequences here. A few weeks ago, we showed you this clip of Joni Ernst delivering a bonkers response to concerned constituents at a town hall.
People are not, well, we all are going to die. So, for heaven's sakes, folks.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. But incredibly, it's still not as bad as the sarcastic follow-up video that she posted the next day.
Hello, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely apologize for a statement that I made yesterday at my town hall. I made an incorrect assumption that everyone in the auditorium understood that, yes, we are all going to perish from this earth. So I apologize. And I'm really, really glad that I did not have to bring up the subject of the tooth fairy as well.
What the fuck is wrong with you? First, did you actually drive to a cemetery for your fun little video there? And second, no one was under the impression that we're all immortal, nor do we think the tooth fairy is real, nor indeed the Easter Bunny. Now, do I happen to believe that leprechauns exist? Yes, but that's because of a personal experience I once had in Dublin. I don't want to get into it now. Suffice to say, I'm down one pot of gold and I know what I saw. But in any case, the problem isn't being naive to the concept of death. Is that this bill could make people die sooner than they otherwise would. So, that is healthcare. What about the other crucial programme on the chopping block here involving food? Well, this bill also includes massive cuts to SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Programme, or food stamps. Currently, more than 41 million people receive benefits through it. It's the nation's largest food aid programme. And this bill would reduce federal spending on SNAP by $287 billion over 10 years. Like the Medicaid cuts, a lot of that is being done through work requirements. SNAP already has those, but this bill's about to expand them significantly, including raising the age limit at which they apply from 54 all the way up to 64. The Senate's version would also strip exemptions from work requirements for veterans, people experiencing homelessness, and former foster youth. And guess who is completely fine with all that?
If you're going to get free food on a SNAP program, you have a work requirement. It's an obligation to try to work. You might not get a job, but you got to try.
Yeah, Dr. Oz is back with his pull yourself up by your own connections to Oprah bullshit. That man is a real piece of shit. Which piece of shit? Who can say exactly? One estimate found more than 5 million people would be at risk of losing at least some of their food assistance. And on top of that, for the first time, the bill would require states to pay for a portion of SNAP benefits and cover more administrative costs. In fact, the CBO estimated that in a 10-year period, this would shift about $121 billion in costs to state governments, which has a lot of people worried because states may not be able to afford that, and those added costs could force them to shrink SNAP eligibility or even leave the programme altogether. And it is not like food banks can easily pick up the slack here, as the head of one in Iowa will tell you.
SNAP is the most effective tool that we have to fight hunger in the United States.
Riverbend Food Bank President Chris Ford says for every meal his food bank provides, SNAP gives out 9 meals.
We would not be able to meet the needs of all those individuals. It would be unprecedented times for food banks.
Yeah, it's not great to hear the phrase unprecedented times for food banks, given they just survived a global pandemic. In the same way that I'd be nervous to hear that it's going to be an unprecedented year for Katy Perry. What more can possibly happen to her? She went to space and fumbled this historic baddie. Orlando, I need you to contact me urgently. One of my writers is single and is pointing a loaded gun at me as I read this to you. And at this point, it is worth pausing to explain what's really going on here with both Medicaid and SNAP. Because even if you're thinking, well, maybe work requirements are needed and limits should be put on who gets these benefits, there are some important things you should know. First, study after study has shown work requirements do not increase work. What they do cause is large drops in programme participation, including, crucially, a lot of people who are actually still eligible to receive help. And the reason for that is something called administrative burdens. Basically, all the obstacles between someone and a programme they're qualified to receive, from paperwork to interviews to regular check-ins and recertification, which can wind up kicking them off. This happens much more than you'd think. One survey of people who were eligible for but not participating in SNAP found that 40% were deterred by the paperwork involved, and another 37% noted that the application was too time-consuming given their family and work responsibilities. And SNAP's administrative burdens have meant that even those who do keep trying can still wind up going without, as this couple with 5 children learned during the pandemic.
For a family of 7 to qualify, their income needs to be under $52,000. What's your best estimate of your yearly income now?
It's like 20,000 or under.
For the two of you, that's combined.
That's combined.
That's combined.
You've applied for the SNAP program.
We've been denied several times. It said that I need to turn in verifications of end of employment for jobs that Barry hasn't had in years.
Company doesn't even exist anymore.
Has it been hard to get people on the phone?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, no shit. I have no idea how I'd get the last company I worked for on the phone either, especially as that company was AT&T. I guess my best bet for contacting them would probably be to whisper my complaint into a bottle and throw it into the Hudson River. I can't see any other way. So basically, this bill is taking all that bureaucratic bullshit and somehow making it even worse. And Republicans will insist these new work requirements will work and that no one truly deserving will be left behind. But we know that is not true. And maybe the best way to show this is to look at Georgia and a state programme called Pathways to Coverage. It's a programme that rolled out there a few years ago, and Republicans apparently use it as a possible template for restructuring Medicaid. Pathways offers health insurance with work requirements, and it launched with testimonials from people like this man who owns an auto repair shop.
Became a member of Pathways in the last year. Pathways is a great program that offers insurance to low-income and working professionals, such as myself, but I highly recommend it because, again, it offers that avenue to you for you to have health insurance where you otherwise would not.
Now, on its face, that sounds good. A working man getting health insurance. Dr. Oz would call him someone who matters. Mike Johnson would call him not 29 and playing Halo, so both would presumably think he's a good candidate for health insurance. It's no wonder he became the de facto face of the programme. Unfortunately, it quickly became clear Pathways had significant problems, particularly regarding how its work requirement was getting administered. People 50 and older had an especially hard time proving they met the requirements, which forced them to provide paperwork verifying their work status every single month. That can be hard, especially if you're not computer savvy or don't have reliable internet. There were stories like the man who had to spend more than an hour every month uploading employment documents to reconfirm his eligibility, often using the free Wi-Fi at his public library. And this director of a clinic for low-income patients reported that none of her patients had enrolled, and she wasn't surprised.
The qualifications are just too steep. You know, I have patients that I have to put A on the pill bottles if they take them in the morning, and P on the pill bottles if they take them at night. And you expect these people to be able to upload documents and renew their health insurance monthly? It's not going to work.
She's right. Benevolent Anna Wintour is right, because just think about it. No matter who you are, uploading documents can be challenging. Have you ever tried to upload new patient forms to a doctor's online portal? It is a nightmare. You click the upload button and select the PDF of your form, but then the site says something like, PDF files not accepted, please upload .gulp files, except you've never heard of gulp files before, so you Google, how do you convert PDF to gulp, and the results say that you need an app called Gulp Transformer that costs $9.99, and so you go back and search free PDF to gulp converter, and finally find a site that says you can do it with Adobe Acrobat, but first you have to convert the PDF to a MOOCs file, and then convert the MOOCs to a gulp, and at that point you just throw your fucking computer out the window. Even people savvy enough to navigate Georgia's system found it hard. One single mother wasn't able to enrol because she said the portal crashed each of the 3 times she tried to apply, and after calling the customer service line, she bounced around from one robot voice to another before ultimately giving up. Even that repair shop owner had his benefits cancelled twice due to bureaucratic red tape. He described one of those times saying, my head exploded, I didn't get a text or an email, I did what I was supposed to do, but that wasn't good enough. Which is a pretty startling U-turn from the face of Pathways to Coverage. It'd be like Jane Goodall suddenly saying, you know what, fuck chimpanzees. They're stupid, hairy arseholes, and if I could strangle everyone until they went extinct, I would. Jesus Christ, Jane, what happened? And this administrative clusterfuck wasn't cheap either. By the end of last year, the Pathways programme cost federal and state taxpayers more than $86 million, 3/4 of which had gone to consultants. And 18 months into the programme, a mere 6,500 participants had enrolled. And remember, that's the programme Republicans apparently modelled their new Medicaid policy on. So if that's what's coming on a national scale, that is fucking terrifying. As one source put it to us, the term people use is work requirements, but that's a misnomer. You should really think of it as a paperwork requirement. And look, I would say that eligible people losing coverage is an unintended consequence. But I think it's the whole point here. Because the vast majority of cost savings that you're getting from instituting something like a work requirement don't come from kicking people off Medicaid and SNAP who don't qualify. They come from kicking off people who do, but who now can't get it because of the burdens you've just put in place. It's death by 1,000 cuts. And the true hypocrisy is, it is not like Republicans aren't up in arms about administrative burdens in other contexts, because when it comes to regulations on businesses, they just never shut the fuck up about it.
I was tired of hearing small businesses say we can hardly make it because of the stack of paper we have to fill out.
Every hour spent on paperwork is an hour not spent on growing their business. This paperwork and red tape will bury workers and businesses trying to make a living.
Small businesses continuously list Washington red tape and regulation as a top issue, keeping them from growing and, in too many cases, simply surviving.
You know, it is pretty striking how horrified Joni Ernst sounds at the idea of businesses struggling to survive. But when it comes to vulnerable human beings, all of a sudden she's like, you know what, grow up, death happens. Worms will eventually eat everything you love. Someday a real rain's going to wash the scum from these streets. Ernst 2026, we're all going to die. And look, I get that red tape can be a problem for businesses, but this is medicine for the sick and food for the hungry. The stakes are just higher. And the burdens this bill is about to impose won't just be kicking 29-year-old gamers and Dr. Oz's imaginary basement squatters off the rolls. They can impact single moms, working people, and those who fear that they would be dead without assistance. Right now, Republicans are trying to rush this bill through because they know how toxic it is. It may have even passed the Senate by the time you are watching this. And while I know there is a lot going on right now, it is worth paying attention to this bill, because if it becomes law, we're going to be looking back on it decades from now, the same way we look back at all the destructive shit that Reagan did. And when that happens, Republicans cannot say they didn't know what was in it or what it would do. Everyone who votes for this should be held accountable, or, to put it in terms that John Kennedy can understand, if you're going to vote for this bill, you better French kiss it. Hell, you might as well put its whole cock in your mouth, because you're going to be married to it for the rest of your fucking life. And now, this.
And now, Dr. R shows off the dignity of work.
Let's get started with our first dilemma, which is vacation constipation. But the question is, how long is too long to hold your pee? So when are you most gassy? Well, so do you ever have discomfort when it's popping out? Do you ever hear it hitting the water and as it comes out of you?
Yeah.
This is the anus. This is a real uterus. Ooh. There you have it right there. The urine. I'm gonna take you from the face to inside the lower rectum. Talking about flatulence, of course. What was the fart score for one of those tiny little toys that I just swallowed? When's it coming out of me? Take the testicles in your hand like this, okay? Now, you notice there are two of them. Well, pretend that didn't happen. Urine's always fascinated me. Urine, by the way, if you haven't had anything fancy, has a sort of a nutty smell to it. And that sort of tastes like that, too.
Moving on. Finally tonight, a quick update about minor league baseball. A lot has happened since we last talked about it. In fact, a few weeks ago, there was even a small business subcommittee hearing called Beyond the Ballpark, the Role of Minor League Baseball in Economic Growth, that concluded in this stirring speech and a truly incredible cutaway.
Baseball drew us out of World War I. Baseball kept going to World War II. Baseball and President Bush kept us going in 9/11. So that's the kind of sport it is. It is the American sport. I always remind people, baseball is the only sport that has a play in it called sacrifice. And that's what America's about. So I'm glad to have all of you here, see my friends.
Yes! 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 Yes, yes, yes. From now on, I'm going to need every congressional hearing to, at some point, cut to a large grinning bat and a giant peach who looks like he's been sniffing glue sticks. By the way, That hearing lasted for over an hour and a half, and those mascots were there the whole time. So, spare a thought for the people seated directly behind them, because those are some bad seats. Now, you may remember last month we offered to rebrand a minor league team, eventually picking the Erie Seawolves, who provided us 11 reasons why they should be chosen, one of which was that they'd had the fearlessness to pioneer the cotton candy hot dog, which is true, by the way. They created this culinary monstrosity, which looks like it came from a cookbook titled Easy Summer Recipes That'll Make You Poop Weird. But as 40% of all minor league teams applied for a rebranding, there was always going to be some disappointment from those that we didn't pick, and some, like the St. Paul Saints, reacted very well.
Now, you may have heard about this a couple weeks ago. Comedian John Oliver, he did a segment on minor league baseball teams with what he called having boring names.
Well, the Saints volunteered, but ultimately the Erie Seawolves of Pennsylvania were picked. The Saints are still having some fun with their basic name, though. They are hosting Plain Night on Thursday. And listen to these plans. The first one, 1,000 fans will receive a piece of plain white paper.
Okay.
The concession stand will only serve vanilla ice cream. And instead of a peanut toss, fans will catch plain white bread. Plus, this one's good. If your name is John or Oliver, you get a free ticket to that game.
That's just very good. Now, do I love that John Wayne Gacy could have technically got a free ticket if he was still alive? No, not particularly, but that is my only criticism, otherwise no notes. Now, as for Erie, our decision to pick them was met with excitement and some understandable trepidation.
HBO's Last Week Tonight host John Oliver made it official Sunday, picking the Seawolves for a total rebrand over more than 40 other minor league teams.
We really have no idea what the plans are. This could be a one-game thing, two-game thing, future thing. You know, we have no idea. So we're excited to see what happens.
Longtime fans like Red Laurie aren't so sure.
To me, they're the Seawolves. They're not. That's not going to change.
Well, here's the thing, Red. It is going to change. That is exactly what's going to happen. You just don't know exactly how. And you're not alone in that. The president of the Seawolves actually said, we've had a lot of media inquiries, starting with the local media, and we've had to tell them we would also like to know what's going on, which I'm sure they would. But I should say, they've been really great sports about all this. At one point, they told us they tried a mini-mic segment where they'd ask their players, what's one thing you know about John Oliver? But apparently felt so bad about the responses, they didn't want to release it. Now, of course, we said, please send that to us immediately. So they did, and it's very good.
You know, to be honest, John, I don't know a dang thing about you, man.
Hey, John, hope you're doing well. I don't know much about you, but appreciate the rebrand, man.
I honestly have no clue who John Oliver is.
I know you're, like, foreign, so that's cool.
I don't. He's a talk show host. I heard someone say something about Britain.
I love it so much. The very fact they're trying so hard not to hurt my feelings is what makes it so emotionally devastating. Especially coming from our main guys. Jake Holton from Creighton University was their 2019 Big East Player of the Year. Trey Cruz, a super utility player just back from Tommy John surgery. Max Anderson, my Casey-born Cornhusker, who I know loves Reese's Cups. I actually don't know this man. And of course, San Diego's own Jim Jarvis. Your one-year wedding anniversary is coming up, JJ. The traditional gift is paper. Now, before we get to the rebrand, we actually had a bunch of emails from the people of Erie with branding ideas of their own. Many were snow-related, like the Erie Shovelers, the Erie Snowplows, or the Erie Frozen Balls or Nuts, which, respectively, that's fun, that's cute, and let's keep this family-friendly, shall we? There was also a suggestion that we rebrand the team around the huge shopping mall in Erie that's shaped like a gun, which it turns out is an actual thing. There is a shopping mall shaped like a gun there, which might be the most American thing that has ever existed. And finally, someone suggested something involving Revolutionary War hero General Mad Anthony Wayne's boiled remains. That last one we knew about because we mentioned in our piece on Trump's tariffs that Erie once boiled a general and may have lost a few of his bones. After that piece aired, we actually got this response video.
Hey, John Oliver. It's me, John Oliver, President and CEO of Visit Erie in Erie, Pennsylvania. We heard you liked the story of Mad Anthony Wayne, and I agree, it's a good one. The kettle that was used to boil his bones is actually on display here in the Erie Pagan History Center, and you can come check it out anytime. Consider this your official invitation to learn more about Erie, Pennsylvania, and even join me for dinner here in Erie, because what's better than one John Oliver, but two John Olivers?
Okay, I think we both know the real answer to that. It is 0 John Olivers. Also, bold move to invite me to have dinner in Erie when literally the only thing I know about your culinary history is that you guys once made soup out of a corpse. Oh, and also, you came up with this shit, so it's a hard pass from me. Someone even took a stab at rebranding the team around that pot-boiling incident for us, sending us a deck including this logo featuring Anthony Wayne inside the pot with baseball stitching on his arm, which is very good. But as all of this was happening, we were also doing our own research into Erie. We considered incorporating popular local landmarks into the rebrand, like the Bicentennial Tower, which is, fun fact, the tallest circumcised building in the city. And we learned about the 1853 Erie Gauge War, where people there started ripping up railroad tracks to protest a standardised track gauge. But then we stumbled on this news clip from 2012.